Welcome to the Occupational Safety Leadership Podcast, episode number 211. In today's episode, we're going to wrap up incident investigation. During these last couple of episodes, we've talked about forming a team. Do we want to call it an incident or an accident? We talked about looking at the root causes. Um, and now we're really going to sit down and kind of wrap up the whole thing. So we've done the root causes. Let's look at corrective actions. So um, can't say it enough. It's bad enough that the incident happened once. Let's not have it happen again. So let's look at when we corrective actions. So some things are going to be very easy to get done fast. Other things are going to take a little time and some money, possibly, or sometimes it just literally is a lot of effort, which can also take time too. The one thing I want folks to think about is what can you do for the interim? What are the interim actions that you can do right now to help to make things better as you're working on some of the longer lead things or you're waiting for the money to show up and all that kind of good stuff. So there's always something we can do in the interim to make it better, reduce the hazard potential or consequences, and then really solve it later on. Corrective actions have to have a champion, and it has to be anchored by a timeline out there. Everybody is busy. Everyone's getting tugged in a lot of directions. Have to have that champion, and it doesn't mean that the champion doesn't say, Jones, I've decided that you have to solve this issue, and that's awesome and great. But the champion is the one who needs to be held accountable, not Jones, for this whole thing. Then, and it has to be anchored by a timeline. Time goes incredibly fast. So what seems like, oh, it's going to take a day or two to fix, if it doesn't get started right away, other things will come in. They start to take your time and attention, and so you have to stay on track. You have to say um, almost things like no matter what, it's going to be solved in 7 days, or everything is done in 7 days. Because if not, time goes on, distractions, all that good stuff. Um, One thing that's really helped me is to sit down and get consensus on the realistic completion date out there. Some things are really easy. I know that when I just went to do a very tiny procedure change, I thought, oh, I can have this done in 3 days. What I did not factor in is that I had to go through the approval loop. That was very easy to do. But by the time that you kick it out to the employees and have them review it and all that good stuff, it really dragged on for about 2 weeks. So even though that on my end, I felt super confident that I was completely done, came up with the greatest plan that ever existed in 3 days. I didn't factor in that I have all these other steps that have to be done. I was so focused on just getting my stuff done. And this is where that you say things like the SOP is done in 3 days, and the final, everybody sees everything, they review everything, you talk it out with the employees in X days afterwards. If things do take longer to go ahead and get done, have a weekly check-in, and it's hard when we as safety professionals almost have to corral cats and get them going in the same spots. Sometimes we don't always feel we have the authority, but I think it's really important to come up with some kind of a weekly check-in. And the weekly check-in can't be things like, oh yeah, this week I just got busy and didn't work on it. The check-in is what was done this week, and then if nothing is done on certain items, well, what is the roadblock out there? What can you do to make this go faster, to keep this going out there? Um, so weekly check-ins really good. Tracking. tracking of what is done so that we can also share a lessons learned with other sister plants out there, all that stuff. It's also helps to really understand how something was corrected, because as a group, if you don't have consensus about, hey, here's how we're going to fix it, here's the time, here's the money, here's everything, um, somebody might have a totally different perception. And so when you're tracking it, you're sitting down and saying, this is exactly what was done out there. And then finally, one of the last things, who can close the item? Who can say, I've done this and it's complete out there? So, one thing that I've been able to use at times is if you have a quality department. They are a objective third party. They do a great job of tracking things. They do a great job of making sure that corrective actions are done. Consider having them to be part of the process. Consider having them to be the one to say, so I'm looking at the action item. Show me exactly the evidence that you did to close this item out there. And it's not about torturing people and all that stuff. It's about, let's not have it happen again, and let's make sure that we close it the right way, because people are feeling lots of pressure and strain. Sometimes some corners are cut. Sometimes we don't communicate well as humans, and so we want to really understand that stuff. And with that, I want to thank everybody for joining me today. This was episode number 211, where we talked about incident investigation, corrective actions, how we're going to follow up, who's going to be the champion, all that good stuff. Thank you for joining me. My name is Dr. David Ayers. Thank you, and have a safe day.